And let me just, kick this off. Just on behalf of the iMoot team, thank everybody for being here. This is our third to last session. We're almost through, but we're still going strong, so this is good. I just want to thank Richard Jones for joining us today, presenting. Richard is a very long-time Moodler. I think we're both Moot junkies. We keep meeting each other at Moots. And Richard is also a chief supporter, I believe, so that goes well for him. But I'd like to thank Richard for giving over his time today, presenting on effective online facilitation. So thank you, Richard. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. A little punchy, yeah, me too. Okay, all right. Now, so we're gonna talk about effective online facilitation, fairly obviously. So let's hope we can make it effective. So what are we going to have a look at? So we're going to have a look at a little bit at the planning. We're going to have a look at a model. So you may or may not have seen Gilly Salmon's 5-stage model. It's pretty well known. It's a useful model because it's a good scaffold, if you like, and particularly for people who are starting out, I think it's pretty effective. Yeah, we just have a look at the different things that you need to do. The 4 pairs of shoes, the 4 different roles in facilitation online, and then a little bit about maintaining motivation, perhaps. And there's not very much about working in forums and managing group work because those have been covered before, but we'll briefly touch on them. And as a facilitator, you don't always have control over the design of your course, so there might not be much you can do to make that better. But we'll touch on a couple of issues there. Right. Okay. Okay. So, if you are a designer, there are quite a few things to consider that will actually help the person who's facilitating. And if you're doing both, you're probably in a slightly better position. But sometimes you have to facilitate courses that other people design. So the designer can help you out by fairly obvious things, such as making sure instructions are clear. And I guess there is an art in itself to writing clear instructions or to trying to put yourself in the point of view of a user of a course. And what seems obvious and clear to you doesn't always seem obvious and clear to the user. I think we've all experienced that at some stage. So, navigation. Beginners find Moodle tricky sometimes, so you need to have a well-designed navigation. And first impressions, of course, do count, as we all know. So you don't want to frustrate your learners right at the beginning if you can avoid it. Start with small activities, small formative quizzes to get people used to. If they're clear marked as practice and are non-threatening, that's also a good start. And don't skimp on the feedback. I think Tim did a whole session on quizzes, so I'm sure he emphasized the fact that formative activities with clear feedback, good quizzes are really, really important. And it's tempting when you're putting together a quiz and you're designing your questions just to go, good job, well done. Oh, no, that's not quite right with your feedback. But feedback gives you so many opportunities for providing scaffolding and guidance that you do not want to skimp on the feedback or look at it as just another chore when you're designing or composing a quiz. Yeah, so you also, as a facilitator, if the course has been run before, then you'll want to look at what happened before. You want to look at feedback from the previous course, even if you didn't run it yourself. Once the course is getting underway, then you need to think about writing clear instructions to your users. And again, it's not a bad idea to get somebody to look over your instructions. A second eye on these things is quite useful. Again, things that seem obvious to you may not be obvious to participants. You should check the navigation, of course, the links, external URLs. Maybe they've moved, maybe they've gone, yeah, maybe they don't work anymore. Yeah, that sort of thing. So make sure the files load and everything works as expected. So that's all fairly common sense stuff, but don't neglect it. It's not a bad idea also to have a checklist for your course, and I'm not sure if I give an example later, perhaps not, but you can find, what I certainly do have is a link to a place where you can find a checklist, and if you watch the links as we go through the presentation, you can pick those up later. Put a copy of the presentation in the course notes, so that's a PDF that has all the live links in it that you'll need to as we go through the presentation. Okay, I'm just going to let you read for a bit. Just have a look at this. So yeah, so teaching is teaching. Actually, no, isn't so much. And technology, well, we all know the dangers of getting wrapped up in the technology at the expense of the pedagogy. So yeah, courses don't run themselves online. You can design courses that are designed to be self-access, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about supported courses. Okay, and this reference here at the bottom is an excellent, there is the checklist. There we go. Okay, communications plan. Try not to wing it if you're new, particularly if you're new to facilitation. Think about what interventions you're going to make and when you're going to make them before you start the course, and have a look at your checklist, of course, once you've written it. Try not to use a generic checklist, okay? You design one for each course that you run. So yeah, the checklist here, you can see, you can make them more complex if you want. You can add notes and you can add other pointers, but and you might want to do that if it's, if it does happen to be the first course that you've facilitated. But you can get away with just, what are you going to do and when you're going to do it. But yeah, okay, just having a look at the chat at the moment. Yeah, a lot of instructors expect learners to learn for themselves. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's Melanie. That is a terrible experience for the learner, and that's really quite demotivating. So yeah, you want to think quite seriously about what you're doing and the potential impact it has on the participants that are watching pretty clearly. All right, so communications plan. We'll talk a bit more about summing up and discussion threads and etiquette. I'm sure we'll get into that as we go on. Okay. Right, so this is Gilly Salmon's model. It's a 5-step model. It's of course, a model is just a way of seeing the world, and we ought to be cautious with buying into models, absolutely. But this is a quite useful one because it's kind of a scaffolding model. It helps facilitators to know and to plan what they should be doing as the course develops over time. And that's quite, the way a course develops over time is quite an important feature of online courses. It also shows the development of the facilitator role. There's a lot of probably technical support and motivational, welcoming messages at the beginning. But as the course develops, then the participants become less dependent on the facilitator, at least we hope they do, and more engaged with each other. And we need to encourage that too. So this kind of model tells you things like probably your group work is going to be more effective at later stages than earlier stages. Yeah. So most of the heavy lifting, the learning, most of the learning activity probably taking place during stages 3 and 4. So it could tell you things like you don't go straight in with a big activity that is also has a high assessment mark, looks important to the users, or so on. Yeah, so you want to start with gentle activities, and once they're confident, technically confident, and then you've built up some trust between the facilitator and the participants, and between the participants, then you can move on and actually do a lot more effective learning in the course. So, oh, okay. I didn't know that, Tim. I did not know that. Look at that. Okay. So I think she's out in Oz these days, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not quite sure where she is. Right. So please feel free to comment. Okay. Yeah. Over in Perth. Yeah. Thanks, Tim. Right. And she still writes, and, you know, gillysalmon.com, you know, keep up to date with that. She's pretty good with what she does in the courses, online courses. So, having had a look at the model, right, let's just briefly go through the different stages and perhaps give a few pointers as to what we're doing at each stage. So, stage one, you need to set up a welcoming environment and be prepared to give technical support. So, again, planning helps you to be well organized. You definitely want to have an icebreaker, because you'll want to encourage people to get together. We'll talk, I think, a bit more about icebreakers. Yeah, we will in the next slide. So introductory tasks, they should be simple, but they should be made with the aim of building a community. So community building is one of the really important things you do at the start of your course. And icebreakers, they are one of the things that can help you with that. Now, there are lots and lots and lots of different ideas and lots and lots of different examples of icebreakers on the web. So if you search for icebreakers for online courses, you'll find masses and masses. Pick one that looks good. What's the aim? Okay, reduce anxiety. Again, as experienced. From Moodle to Blackboard. Oh dear. Why would you ever go that way around? Never mind, sorry. Okay, we're at a Moodle conference, so I don't think anybody's going to see that as a good thing. Now, where were we? Yeah, okay, reduce anxiety, because thanks, spanner in the works. What we underestimate the anxiety that learners can feel online, because we're so familiar with the environment ourselves. So the icebreaker is important. Getting people even used to the way Moodle runs can be important if you've got beginners. So you want to promote interaction. Getting to know people is an important step in reducing anxiety. Kind of activities you can have could be completely unrelated to the course material. People do things like stranded on desert islands, favorite food, color, music. What would you do if you had a magic wand, and all that sort of thing, which are designed to promote the fun element. Somebody mentioned one of my favorites in the last session, which is Two Truths and a Lie, which is quite good as well, because it introduces a game element too. And that one you can run through a wiki. It's quite good. Perhaps I won't get into the technical detail, but if you're interested, I have an example of that one somewhere. You also can use the icebreaker to discover expectations of participants. Yeah, you can make this interactive in the icebreaker, so you can have people look at other people's expectations and see how they line up with their own. In face-to-face workshops, of course, you usually have participants introduce themselves, or participants introduce other participants, and you can do this online as well. So that's quite good. So there's quite good things to do too. Relating to course content, I put a question mark there. I quite like the approach. So if I'm running a course on facilitation, I might, as part of the icebreaker, ask people to share their worst experience of facilitation. Just to throw that in there. What are the terrible things that have gone wrong for you when you've been running a training workshop or been in the classroom or wherever? So then you get a feel also for what people expect and maybe what they already know as well. So yeah, you could consider relating your icebreaker to content. See how that goes. So when we get to stage 2, Gilly Salmon uses the term bridge building here. You'll want to be available as necessary. You'll want to make it clear that the participants can contact you, although without expecting an immediate response. You don't want to give them the impression you're available 24/7 at the beginning of the course. Well, they'll be disappointed when they find out that you sleep sometimes. All right, so group activities, you can begin to have, I think, not too complex, but group activities, to give opportunities for learners to build relationships with other learners that can trust. Now, don't feel the need at this stage to over-control themes. Now, once you're getting into the course, if you are kind of, I use the term control freak, and somebody else used a different term that was much milder. But if you have a tendency to want to interfere in everything that goes on, learn to step back. Constant corrections or comments on student input can be both annoying and demotivating. Yeah. Yes, Joshua. Yeah, students seem to think that once they leave the classroom, you stay there and sleep in the drawer, and then you come out again when they come in. Yeah, it's common. Yeah, I don't know why they get that impression that you have no life outside the classroom you're in with them, but they do seem to do that. Okay, did I skip one? I think I skipped one. Okay, no, I didn't. All right. Information exchange. Learners should be in control. Right. Sorry, just bear with me. I'm looking at my presentation notes at the same time. Yeah. Okay. Right, so we've done that. Okay. I think I skipped a slide somewhere. Sorry. Bear with me. Okay. So here we're getting into the meat of the course by the time we get to stage 3. As I said at the beginning, the learners should be more in control. So the bridges should have been built. The learning community should have been established. There's a sense of trust, we hope. Most of the learners should be engaged, interacting, communicating. Doesn't mean you don't need to provide any support, but you should by now have a feel for the individuals that are on your course, who's flying ahead and who's lurking or unsure or doesn't appear to have finished too many activities. So most of your communication at this stage will be reasonably short and limited to providing perhaps cues rather than direct instruction. So the cues might be used to create a sense of purpose, organize learners into groups, provide some clarity around the tasks that have been set. You might also at this stage be privately communicating with some of the users. So if it looks as if they need encouragement or help, or you're not sure. And also, of course, you might occasionally have people that you have to remind about the correct way to respond on a forum. And you probably don't want to do that in public. You probably want to have a private email communication with the participants that seem to be following the general rules of etiquette. Just the same as in your classroom management, I guess. You probably don't try and pick on people in public. Probably try and have a quiet word with them. There you go. Shaming tends to put people's backs up. Now you want to use the activity logs, the extensive activity logs that Moodle provides, and I'll show an example if you haven't seen one. If you have, you can certainly find out that you have some latecomers who've not yet caught up, so seem to have got a bit behind. It's a common experience. You get one or two, I think, in every 10 or 15 that through various reasons didn't start the course on time, and you might need to summarize things for them and get them caught up and encourage them to believe that they can still contribute, still complete the course in good time if you think they can. Okay, so you might have to let them know what's going on, and you might have to let them know which are the most vital deadlines they have to meet. So yeah, you might have to deal with people at different stages in the courses, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. Here's just one example of the excellent reports that Moodle provides. You've probably seen this one, but you definitely want to be using these to identify the participants who have not done very much. And as I say, yeah, it's my favorite too, Melanie. It's very, very useful. I use it a lot. And I believe, I haven't got chapter and verse on this, but I think there's been some recent research to show that even during the first day or two of an online course, maybe if it's running for a week, certainly in the quite early on in the course, you can get a good feel for who is already getting behind. So these logs, you want to look at them pretty frequently, add it to your checklist if necessary, a reminder to look at the activity logs, and email or find out what's going on with a learner that's struggling. And it may be something they're perfectly well aware of. And you know, I have participants, you know, they have lives, their daughters get married, they change their priorities from the course perhaps to that, and we understand that perfectly well, but we have to let them know that, yeah, at some point there's a payback for that. If they want to complete the course, at some point they'll have to step up and get stuff done. Yes. Indeed. Probably not very positively, you would imagine. Okay. All right. Now, knowledge construction. Okay, stage 4. So, wow, we're really getting to the nitty gritty. Yeah. If the learners aren't doing almost all of the work, not quite sure what they would be doing. Yeah. If you're doing almost all of the work, then something's desperately wrong with the course. Now, in a well-designed and well-facilitated course, learning community has been established. Participants are working together on tasks. Your instructions maintain that rather than working against it. So, as an example, you might be tempted to introduce a new forum by saying, in this forum, I want you to discuss, which would encourage people to post a completed viewpoint. Yeah, they might go through and give a summary of some kind. So consider instead making it a group activity, working in pairs or groups, identify the top 3 issues in. Okay, so the tone is immediately different. You're telling them you're not leading. They're actually doing the learning. They're actually doing the work. That would hopefully encourage them to interact and negotiate with other participants. And I find actually that the wiki, the Moodle wiki, is quite a useful space for this kind of activity, perhaps more so than the forum. And the reason for that is that your participants can have both individual and group pages, and you can combine. I'll show you. Right? Yeah, you can combine rubrics and instructions and other things all together on the same page. So I find that quite useful. You can see here's the instructions. Here's what you're supposed to do. There's a rubric here. These are the pages for the pairs that are working. And then below they would have had their own participants pages. So it keeps everything in pretty much in one place. And I think that's so. I think the wiki is quite a useful tool in that respect. Yeah, and I guess it's the same for the participants as it is for you. Although I find people are less familiar with the wiki, generally speaking, than the forum. So again, that's probably one reason why I would frequently build Icebreaker around the wiki, so that people get used to that as an icebreaker activity before they actually have to do some serious work within it. Okay. So those who are still in the course should be confident and pretty prepared to build on what they've learned. So I think for me, this is a good time to do the major assessment, if there is such a thing as a major assessment. And of course, time for reflection, because reflection, as we all know, is really, really important in long-term retention. And in consolidating the learning. And also you'll want to obviously get feedback and begin to evaluate the course, begin to think about what are the areas for improvement, and you probably have a separate document or a hidden space inside your course where you can make those sort of notes as you go along. This didn't work so well, that went very well, or I need to tweak this activity and so on. So you want to be looking at this stage, you want to be looking at the course and trying to figure out ways in which it could be improved. And cautionary note, I guess we said at the beginning, a model is a way of viewing things. Any particular model has its strengths and weaknesses. It's not a complete representation of reality. So Gilly, it's only a model. Yeah, that's right. Gilly Salmon's model helps with scaffolding or structuring a course, and that's why I like it in terms of facilitation. It's maybe not the model you want as a course designer, but certainly if you're facilitating, it's really, really useful. If you're not involved in course design, of course, some of these aspects can't be implemented. I mean, you can't do careful design of group work as a facilitator, but you can go back and talk to the designer, hopefully, and talk about the things that did work and the things that didn't work so well. The course undoubtedly will have been designed with a specific learner profile in mind. At least hopefully the designer did their research. But that doesn't mean that you will have only learners with that profile in your course when it runs, because that's the general nature of things. Yeah, you still need to be flexible and adaptable and creative, and recognize that you were told that all the learners were experienced Moodle users, and then you find out that they don't know the difference between a forum and a wiki, and you go, okay, all right. Well, design intention was good, but I need to add some things. I need to be flexible. I can't just steam ahead and go, well, you should have done, right? If you were coming on this course, you really should have known the difference between a wiki and a forum, because that's not going to be helpful for anybody. So you'll just have to add an extra resource explaining how these things work. So you need to be flexible and creative, as teachers generally tend to be. We hope. Now, one of the differences, I guess, is that online you don't get as much immediate feedback. It's a nice way of putting it, as you do in a face-to-face situation, as you do in the classroom, perhaps. In the classroom, you tend to get fairly immediate feedback, I find. Now, okay. All right, so I just briefly mentioned this little article here, if you like. So wearing 4 pairs of shoes. So this really explains why the statement that you looked at the beginning from Mary Bart about the difficulties experienced by those who don't differentiate online from traditional teaching. This might be one of the reasons why it is, because you've got multiple tasks in the online environment that you tend not to have, particularly in the lecture hall, but also quite often not in the classroom as well. You might be heavily into instruction, and being a social director, program manager, technical assistant might be tasks that belong to other people. So online, you'll find yourself doing all of those things, just to mention that. So there's quite a lot to the job of facilitation, and you have to take on those different roles at different times. Okay. So, yeah, if you can't really motivate learners unless you know why they took the course, which is another use for the icebreaker. And it'd be nice to find out, if you're able to, how they got into the course. I mean, were they made take it? Yeah, or did they volunteer? Because obviously that can have a tremendous effect on their motivation and commitment. Yeah, if they're told they have to, they're not always the most motivated. So you need to try and find good reasons for them to participate. Yeah, they could be bored, they could be unmotivated, might be negative in their dealings with other people. So you have to be prepared to deal with that as well. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Prisoners and inmates. Okay. So the inmates are the people working in admin, perhaps. Yeah. But in the work environments, people tend to be told, well, you have to take this course, particularly like onboarding courses and things like that. It can have an impact on your course. So finding reasons for them to contribute is going to be good. Why should they commit? Why should they do anything? Yeah, well, I just have to get through this. And I guess that sometimes you have to recognize that you're not going to do anything about that. Yeah. And sometimes you have to know when to call it quits. All right, so we need some good formative activities, I think, which are comparatively easy. Even if you have high-flying learners, engaged, committed, they might feel that quizzes are a bit too easy, but they won't really mind all that much getting like 300% on a quiz. I was asked about this one in the last presentation as well. This is a CBM quiz, a certainty-based marking quiz. So if you get the answer right and you're 100% certain that it was right, your score for that particular question is tripled. So so you can get more than 100% on your quiz, which again is something you actually want to point out to people before you run it, or before you show. In this case, this is a quiz results block, and again, quiz results block you might or might not want to put into the course. It just depends on knowing your audience a bit. I have mixed feelings about CBM. It's nice. It's one of those things that it's nice to do as an instructor. I'm not quite sure that all the participants really appreciate it. Because I don't know. It's fun for you. Whether it's fun for them, well, they'll have to tell you. Yeah, my students groan, but I secretly feel that they probably enjoy it. Yeah. Yes, I think so, Tim. Yeah, I think I see it as an element of gamification. Yeah, particularly if you use the leaderboards. But I think you do have to know your audience. I think maybe, I've worked in schools where they are like sporty places and they're all male, and there's a certain amount of competitiveness in the air. So they can be motivating there, I think. Although, of course, we would only show the top grades. We would show the grades all the way down in a leaderboard type situation. I think so. Yeah. The thing with CBM, of course, is you could end up with a negative score, which it's interesting too. Yeah. Okay. So it's good stuff, I think. Not bad. Anyway, let's have a look. So I said I'd brief, the bad students, but the bad students don't appear bad. We don't say bad, do we, Melanie? So the students who are more challenged might not appreciate it. Yes, but we don't show them on the leaderboard. All right, so we only show the top 3 or the top 5. Yeah, so that's good. Now, forums. Yeah, there isn't much to say about forums. I think I did a presentation at the last Moot, if I remember, on using forums. So there's I'm not going to go through it all again, but here's a couple of links that if you want to have a look at, that's quite useful. Online discourse. Mark Nichols, quite well known. Excuse me, at least in New Zealand. So forums have a lot more uses, I guess. What I'm trying to say here, forums are quite versatile and have a lot of different uses. Not every forum has to have a lively discussion. However, I guess the purpose of the forum that you've put in the course, or the designers put in the course for you, should be clear. All right, so it's a basic rule, I guess, of any type of teaching. What's expected of the learners should be clear. And sometimes nothing is expected of the learners. So you're just throwing up, let's say, like Moodle's news forum, you're just throwing up some information for them to read. So the only thing that's expected is that they read it. Not that they do anything or get into a big discussion. So yeah, you can use forums for many different things. And depending a little bit on the type of forum and the stage of the course that you're at, so this is similar in some ways to Gilly Salmon's model, you can use different facilitation strategies for forums at different times. So yeah, this is just a slightly different model showing the way that forums can develop in a course over time. So we move basically from shallower to deeper interactions here. Once the course has progressed beyond the initial stages, you probably need to step back and not respond to every post of every learner. That's going to interrupt the flow, reduce opportunities for peer interaction, and so on. We touched on that earlier. You don't want to overly intrude once the learners are up and running. And I might, in this context, Gilly Salmon again, I might just talk about weaving. And these are 2 very good references here. In fact, this online reference here at the bottom, Learning to Teach Online, is excellent. All right, there's a lot of video resources there. So techniques for weaving forums, there are 13 steps. So I haven't put 13 steps on the slide, but all of the steps are discussed here. Yeah. So basically, she recommends copying and pasting all of the forum contributions into a Word document, using color coding to identify common themes, and then summarizing those themes at the end, remembering to quote from the individual contributors so as to acknowledge their contributions, and then summarize and feedback at the end, and then post that. And I think she also mentions when you post that file discussion, perhaps say that we've discussed this issue and it's time to move on, to give the forum some closure. But the whole 13 steps are there, and there is a little bit of an art to weaving a discussion and pulling out the major points. Okay, and the video is quite a good for those of you that prefer videos to written instructions. That's also quite good as well. Again, just briefly mention again that all of those are available in the course, in the PDF, so you can download that and go through some of these links at your leisure if you've a mind to. Should we grade forums? Well, it depends on your objective, right? So what are you trying to do? If it's collaboration and cooperation, probably not. If it's a different way of assigning an assessment task, probably. Again, suggest the distinction between the two types. It is made clear to the learners. Balance and reasonableness, yes. So if you have 1,000 total points for your course and there are 4 forums and they're each worth 10 points, you probably won't get much interaction. Students are not that dumb, generally speaking. If you reverse that and you allocate 200 points for each forum, then students can pass the course without having done any formal testing. So it's just something else that you need to plan. If you're in the position, of course, of designing and facilitating the course, if we're making that assumption, then you want to bring some balance into your course, and this is something that applies to all items and activities. Is there another way, Melanie? I'm not sure. Are you saying this is too obvious? I'm not sure what you're trying to tell me there, if anything. Right, so these are some criteria. Only facilitating or designing. Yeah, a lot of people do both. Yes, delivering, design and delivery. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but some people don't. Right. So in large organizations, you might have course designers and you might have course facilitators only. So the facilitator might not be in control of the design. Yeah. So I guess what I was saying with the last slide was, if you are in control of both design and facilitation, that's a good thing, because then you can introduce the balance, right? So you can tweak the balance, you can get the feedback, and you can look at the activities, which ones worked and which ones didn't work, and did I design this quite successfully or unsuccessfully? So you're in a strong position to improve your course as you go. But not everyone is in that position. So for some people, they will need to feed back to the designer that activity X didn't work so well. So that's what I guess that's what I'm trying to say there. Just trying to recognize that there are people that don't have control over the design of the course. Okay, so these things are happening, then your course is being facilitated effectively. I'm going to say a bit of a blanket statement, but okay, yeah, hopefully. These criteria from the University of Tasmania, there's a link there at the bottom. These will be useful criteria when you want to evaluate your course, set up a feedback survey. You can translate those into feedback questions. So must be getting there. Group work. I said I'd talk a little bit about group work, and I'm not going to talk a lot about it. Does anybody like it? Do you play well with others? Sometimes I do. Sometimes I don't. But I do recognize the value of working in a group. So I personally have to force myself to do it, because I've always been a bit of a, study at home and work it all out for myself kind of person. Obviously, like anybody else, I quite like social groups when there aren't any deliverables or deadlines or expectations are not very high. That's fun. But when it comes to work, I don't know how like I am other people, but then I think, I want to take responsibility for myself here if I'm going to be assessed on it. So that can be quite tricky. Yeah. So what you can do there is you can use rubrics, which of course are built into Moodle, and you can then clearly identify what's the worth of an individual contribution, what's the worth of a group contribution. Yes, Tim. Yeah, that's what it's. Yeah, I'm taking part in group activities because I believe I have like a moral duty to do it. Yeah, to work with other people and share my knowledge. But my own preferred learning style is probably more that of an individual. But yeah, you're right. So we will have group activities online because we do want socialization. We do want trust between participants. We do want them to learn from each other. We know that if there's only one channel from facilitator to all the participants, that is not going to be as effective as if we have multiple channels for people to learn from. So that would be my thoughts on why, Joshua. But I look forward to other people coming in and joining that discussion. That's obviously going to be really, really significant. One thing you can do is when you're asking learners to submit written assignments, you can ask them to collect and quote evidence from their own forum posts. So that way you don't have to do it quite so much. So what I'm saying there is get the students to collect in group work and other work to collect the evidence for themselves, yeah, from what they've already posted. So you don't have to go through, 200 forum posts and assign a grade to each individual student based on what they posted. No, you don't do that. Get them to summarize and present to you what they think they've learned or what they have learned. For example, a teacher I know set a forum task up on a Friday afternoon, and it must have really engaged the students. There were 20 odd students in the class. When she came in on Monday morning, there were 220 posts in the forum. So she had a bit more work to do that day than she had planned on. So organizing students into smaller discussion groups and getting them to summarize the discussion of their group will help with that sort of thing. So she should assign 5 groups of 4 students each, yeah, and then asked one student in the group to summarize it. She'd have obviously had a lot less information material to deal with. Yeah. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. All right. I'm just reading the comments here. Yeah. Just trying to catch up on that discussion. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go, Tim, with the multiple lines of learning rather than just, the approach that the instructor tells everybody what they need to know for the time being. See how we go. And let's have a look at this because here's a cautionary note. All right. Yeah. So the importance of instructions and expectations. Yeah. Just to finish with, if you are designing group work, be careful. Yeah. Make sure students know what it is they have to do. And I think that'll just about do us. Yeah, 24 out of 25. So this one must be just. Thanks. All right. Questions? Hey, Shane. We need to wake up Shane. Okay, we tend to listen more to those we relate to. Yes, that's true. Yes, and if they're talking about what you've talked about, multiple sources, yeah, they don't. Yeah, I've noticed that in really effective forums, once you get to the point where students are quoting from other students or picking up on what other students have said, rather than what the teacher has said, then it really does begin to take off. It really does become interactive. A colleague of mine, an ex-colleague of mine, Jill Margerison at the Southport School, we wrote something about that. Yeah, I think for the last Moodle Moot. I think I had some quotes from students too. The last one in Melbourne, but it definitely seemed to show that students once they start talking to other students in the forums, then yeah, their learning can really take off, and they enjoy it. And in fact, they made if I remember at the Melbourne Moot, they made a little film about it for us and put it online. These were Year 8 boys studying poetry, and they got pretty enthusiastic about the subject, which is unusual. Any more questions? Shane's gone to sleep, I think. He's getting to the end. He must be tired.
No, I'm here. I was listening. I was just thinking. I was letting the questions go. Yeah, but let me jump in and just thank you, Richard, for a great presentation. Providing your time and all of that. It's been great. And certainly, I don't want to kill the questions. So, if there's any, please keep going.
Thanks, Shane. Yeah, I suppose it is. Yeah.